Srebrenica is an old mining town in eastern Bosnia. Under the long rule of Marshal Tito, it was a prosperous place where the majority Muslim population lived comfortably with their Serb neighbors. In the savage ethnic war which consumed Bosnia after 1992, thousands of Muslims fled to Srebrenica, seeking refuge from the surrounding Bosnian Serb army. In April 1993, Srebrenica was declared the first United Nations safe area under the protection of UN peacekeepers. For years, 40,000 Muslim refugees were trapped here, struggling to survive. Finally, in July 1995, the Bosnian Serb army, led by General Ratko Mladic, took the town. Three days later, 8,000 people were dead, including the family of Hassan Nuhanovic.
It's coming back all the time. You try to push it away, you try to look the other way. Sometimes something that happens in your life simply brings it back.
Hassan and his family endured 3 years as refugees in Srebrenica.
It never goes away, really. I don't want to go back. I don't want to live with these images. And I don't want to walk in the street of Srebrenica and come across a Serb war criminal. What is a person supposed to do in a situation when he meets the murderer of his mother in the street?
Hassan Nuhanovic's obsession with Srebrenica is driven by what happened here to him and his family. This is where the nightmare of Srebrenica began to unfold. The old battery factory just outside the town was the base for a Dutch battalion of UN peacekeepers. On July 11th, 1995, thousands of terrified people fled from the advancing Bosnian Serb forces in the hope of finding refuge here. With 5,000 other desperate people, Hassan's family found refuge in the Dutch base. As an interpreter working with the Dutch battalion, Hassan was allowed to stay. But with the Serb forces surrounding the base, his family and all the refugees were ordered to leave by the Dutch peacekeepers.
It was Dutch soldiers, armed, wearing full combat uniforms, helmets, with rifles in their hands, more or less ready to shoot, came into the room where my family was sitting, telling my family through me, speaking English, Hassan, tell your family to leave right now. There's no more time for waiting.
Hassan has seen nothing of his family since that moment on July 13th, 1995, when he told them to go, knowing they were probably going to their deaths. I blame myself all the time for bringing brother to the Dutch battalion base, and I blame myself for not telling him to run to the woods with his friends who have actually survived. Basically, I've handed over my brother on a plate to the Serbs. Actually, it was the Dutch who did it. But it was also my decision, and there's a continuous struggle in my mind over this issue. But you can't live with that. I mean, you simply have to fight it. And there's nothing between life and death. You either live or you die. I bought an apartment in Sarajevo where I live with my wife and daughter. I'm trying to build my life here in Sarajevo now, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that I'm giving up the fight for justice. You have to live two parallel lives, basically. So you have to do everyday things. You have to wake up, go to your work, speak to your colleagues, to your neighbors, have a family. And it's very, very hard to cope with that.
A decade after the war, the old Dutch base where Hassan lost his family is still scattered with relics of the UN peacekeepers.
What I call international elements in Srebrenica at that time have basically assisted the Serb troops commit this horrible crime. They made it possible. We want a solution, we want a decision at a court which will say, okay, the responsibility is this and that, and this is what we owe you, for what we have done to you.
Hassan has compiled a 300-page report analysing the responsibility of the international community, the UN, the Dutch, the French, the Americans, for what happened in Srebrenica. But his main target is the Dutch.
I would really rather see criminal proceedings against individuals of the Dutch battalion who basically pushed my family into death, and I saw it with my eyes. I've been in Holland for 10 times maybe, asking the Dutch, urging the Dutch authorities to launch a serious investigation into the role of these individuals. It has failed. They don't want to do it. So it's the state as a wall between me and those individuals. So, okay, I'm looking at the state now.
Early in 2004, Hassan was still pursuing his legal campaign in Holland, still trying to get the court to accept his case.
I could never imagine that the UN peacekeeping troops who came to Bosnia would do what they did to my family. Handing over my family to the executioners was something that I couldn't imagine. After Srebrenica massacre, for months I had terrible dreams. And one of these dreams was that I'm flying over scorched land, and there are many graves. And one grave opens up, suddenly, under me, opens up. And my mother comes out of the grave and says to me, "I don't like you." And she didn't say anything else. That was one of these dreams I'll never forget in my life. As if my mind was telling me that my mother didn't like me anymore because I haven't managed to protect my brother's life.